Hey everybody, welcome to Edge of Wonder. We have a very special episode with the one and only Robert David Steele as our guest today on our show. Robert, thanks so much for joining us and being here.
How you doing, Robert?
Well, I consider it a privilege to be on Edge of Wonder and look forward to seeing what you guys want to do. I do spy improv. Ask me anything.
Awesome.
Great. Do you want to read the bio a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. So Robert David Steele is a former Marine Corps infantry officer, CIA spy, and second-ranking civilian in Marine Corps intelligence, responsible for creating the Marine Corps intelligence activity. Robert is the CEO of Earth Intelligence Network and is the chief counsel for the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into Human Trafficking and Child Sex Abuse, which is some amazing credentials there, Robert. We've seen some of your work.
Well, what do you want to ask? Or do you want me to say something?
Okay. Well, why don't we start? Starting out with, I just want everyone to know that you are featured in our next Old World Order video, our documentary, which is all about false flags. And so we're on the verge of publishing that. I think it's going to be out in October 15th, around that time. So
you could change the presidential election.
Hopefully. We're hoping. That was kind of the plan. Let's get this one out before the election. But I think starting out with, it'd be really good to kind of hear a little bit more about your story. I think a lot of people are familiar with you, but there might be a lot of people that, may not know you exactly very well. So it might be good to start out with what you did, how long you were working at the CIA, and kind of what you can tell us about being part of the CIA.
I'd be glad to. First off, I was born in New York, the son of a U.S.-born oil man and a Colombian mother. I'm bilingual in Spanish and English. I spent 20 years overseas, or 18 years overseas, half in Latin America, half in Asia, including 4 years in Vietnam as a kid. Came back, did university stuff, and joined the Marine Corps because I thought I'd become too intellectual, and was an infantry officer in the Marine Corps. I found that boring in peacetime, so I was one of 65 people out of 25,000 applicants for a CIA clandestine operations position. It's very competitive, and however critical I might be of CIA, I still recommend that people join CIA if they get a chance. There's no better way of understanding the beast than serving in the belly of the beast. I left CIA when the Marine Corps invited me to come create the Marine Corps Intelligence Center. At the same time, I pissed off the clandestine service by refusing a job on covert action staff, which is, I signed up to steal the truth from my country, not to tell lies for my country or assassinate people or torture people or do all the other silly shit that covert action staff does. I've reviewed several books recently. I'm starting to realize that CIA has been conducting illegal activities within the United States of America since at least the 1960s, if not before, to include creating a completely degenerate music industry with mind control and sex and drugs and rock and roll and the whole bit. What really changed my life was being the second-ranking civilian in Marine Corps intelligence and being responsible for providing decision support to the Commandant of the Marine Corps and all of our Marine Corps generals and every combatant commander, is I found out spies don't know shit. They basically are obsessed on a few things like the Soviet Union and China and Korea and laughably Cuba, and they don't know anything about Burundi or Haiti or Somalia. So I created the open source intelligence discipline and scared the living out of CIA. They were very, very frightened by the idea that an open source agency might put them out of business. So We've had a fight for the last 40 years. And if President Trump wins re-election and if Mike Flynn comes back into government, then I'm hoping there will be an open source agency. And the beauty of open source intelligence is you can share it with the public. You can share it with Congress, the press, and foreign allies, which means you can make evidence-based decisions in the public interest and no secrets. I testified to the Secrecy Commission run by Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, and the point that I made is that secrecy in Washington is not about protecting secrets. It's about protecting the right to lie to Congress.
Right. So when you say, well, we have the CIA, which is a civilian intelligence agency, right? So right, but it's civilian intelligence as opposed to the NSA, which is military intelligence. Is that correct to say that?
Yeah, and the National Security Agency actually does not have a legislative charter. The president could close it tomorrow, and that's what Obama was going to do with the Ed Snowden op. Ed Snowden was a CIA operation against NSA because Obama and Brennan and Clapper were terrified that NSA was capturing all of their treasonous conversations with Comey and others. And so Ed Snowden was literally a CIA operation intended to give Obama an opportunity to go to Congress and say, we need to close down these nasty. But that didn't work out the way they were planning. And in fact, Admiral Rogers, as head of the NSA, may end up being one of the greatest Americans in modern history because he went to Trump and told him exactly what was happening. And that was the beginning of the Trump revolution.
I see. So, yeah, on one of your recent videos on your YouTube page, you were talking about how you believe that Trump is going to pardon Edward Snowden. And this is like a really big discussion because I think...
Because we all think Edward Snowden is a shill.
Right. Well, yeah, because because what happened, it looked like the NSA, even though they were spying on everybody, really were focusing on more of like the cabal aspect of kind of what you were talking about, right? So, in some ways, on the surface, it looked like what Edward did was reveal what the NSA was doing and allow the cabal to. Everyone's focusing on the NSA, so it's like, oh, look at what they're doing, and something bad, But so it's hard to say. But what is your opinion about Trump pardoning Snowden?
I paid for a cartoon by Ben Garrison.
That's what I was going to bring up.
Yeah, it's a great cartoon. You guys could even throw it up. But in that cartoon, Bill Binney is growling about how we're spying on all these Americans. Binney's a great American. And then in the second half of the cartoon below it, Trump is smiling at Binney and says, yeah, but we also got all the dirt on the plutocrats. Okay. And that's the heart of the matter. Binney and I have been saying for months that we've got it all, but NSA only processes 1% of it. Look, Snowden was a security guard with a high school education at NSA. He was then by CIA as a so-called technical expert in Geneva. Then he was sheep-dipped again into Booz Allen, which is the alternative CIA, where Mike McConnell, Keith Hall, and Joan Dempsey, among other infamous names, work. And then he was put into Hawaii, where somebody handed him, allegedly, 1.8 million documents. I think it was closer to 100,000. And then he was set up with Greenwald and these other guys in Hong Kong. And then he flees to Russia, and mysteriously the State Department, which is not completely stupid, cancels his passport, so he's forced to stay in Russia. This is a WrestleMania drama.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. Okay.
It really is.
Now, bottom line here is the deal that I'm told that Snowden has with the president. Not only is he giving up all of the money that he earned, but he is going to testify against Obama and Brennan and whoever at Booz Allen was his handler. Now, Assange has a similar deal on the table, where Assange will testify that Seth Rich handed a flash drive to Admiral Craig Murray, who handed it to Assange, no Russians involved. Now, I want to bring up one third name, John Kiriakou. John Kiriakou is a CIA officer, a very fine CIA officer, who was framed by the FBI exactly the same way Mike Flynn was framed. And so many others have been framed by the FBI over time. So I've called for the pardon of Kiriakou as well as Snowden and Assange. Kiriakou allows the president to denounce the FBI and the CIA for framing loyal, patriotic Americans. Then I've also asked for the president to pardon the Black Panthers in prison and the Native American leaders like Pelletier. That creates a holistic healing scenario going into the election.
I see.
The story you're telling about Snowden is not very known, that he's actually playing ball for the good guys. So how is it? how did you come by this information?
Who's playing ball for the good guys?
Well, you're saying Snowden could testify against
Snowden. Look, I've met Snowden's parents. Okay, I mean they have top secret clearances. They're part of the system. Snowden is a pawn in a CIA war against NSA that failed. Gotcha. Because of Admiral Rogers, Trump understands who Snowden is and what he can offer. And the deal with Snowden is you can rot to death in Russia, or you can come home and testify against the assholes that tried to set you up.
I see.
I think the decision is clear then, isn't it? Yeah.
And that's what I was trying to say earlier, is that it looked like on the surface Snowden did a form of treason against the United States. You know, he went to China and then he went to Russia. And it's like, what was he doing? You know, why go to China and Russia?
Well, you know, I mean, CIA has some wonderful people. And I never tire of saying that everybody at CIA, 90% of everybody is, you know, good people trapped in a bad system.
Yeah,
it was on the surface a great scenario. Evil, dark NSA spying on every American, blah, blah, blah. Now, I got Bill Binney on Michelle Holiday to say that with 10 people in 30 days, he could process 100% of NSA's data instead of 1%, and he could identify with certainty every single traitor, every single elite pedophile, and every single white-collar criminal in the United States of America. Guess what? 2 weeks ago, Bill Binney disappeared.
No way.
Into the maws of empire.
So you haven't heard from Bill in 2 weeks from now?
I think Bill is serving the president with distinction.
Wow.
Oh, okay. At first I was a little worried when you said he disappeared. I was like,
I was worried too. I was very worried, to the point that I sent General Flynn a frantic note asking him to call Bill. But now my sense is that Bill is basically in God's hands on earth doing God's work.
That's amazing. That's really
It is amazing, because let me tell you something. There isn't a person on this planet that can survive Bill Binney inside of NSA's database, and that includes Fauci and Bill Gates.
Yeah, I mean, he created programs and systems like within the NSA, like back even in the 90s, right?
Oh, look, he was also doing it legally and ethically. Thin Thread was a legal, ethical way of looking at metadata without violating the privacy of the individuals inside of their content. And, you know, one of the things people need to know about signals intelligence is, going back 100 years, it's never been about the content. It's always been about the pattern analysis. If Schmuckatelli is calling the Taliban in Afghanistan 5 times a month, that's a clue. That's all you need.
Yeah. Wow. Amen there. Hey, so there's a bunch of stuff for us to talk about, actually, and we're really curious to know your thoughts on a couple of kind of more hot topics. How about?
Oh, by the way, let me just say for the record, this is a United States Marine Corps ring. You can see Iwo Jima here. To all of those scum-sucking assholes that think that this is some kind of pedophilia satanic ring, no. It is a United States Marine Corps ring. I got it in a cereal box.
Just for everyone to know. Gotcha.
I'm sick and tired of the morons that keep coming up and saying, oh my God, you're wearing a satanic ring. I mean, I'm beginning to wonder just how stupid America has become.
A lot of people jump to conclusions when they see a ring like that because of the Masonic culture in this country. But it is very important to understand, you know, you can't accuse someone of something without really looking into it. And, you know, the Marine Corps rings are going to look very similar to the Masonic rings for a lot of different reasons.
And let me also point out the Marine Corps was started in a bar, Ton Tavern.
That's awesome. Me either.
From the Civil War to civil rights, which party really believed that all men were created equal? And which party tried to filibuster it? Get ready for the civil rights history lesson they didn't teach us about in school. Democrats versus Republicans, Part 2, Let Freedom Ring. Premieres October 6th, only on edgeofwonder.tv.
Hey everybody, we're back from our trailer break. Hope you guys enjoyed that. And we're here with Robert David Steele. Okay, well, so we were curious to know, I'm sure you've heard the news about Hunter Biden, that the Senate report linked him to, how he sent money to or aided in human trafficking, and we were wondering if you could give us your perspective on that.
He's a drug-sucking piece of shit that was taking money on behalf of his father.
Mm-hmm. That does it. So, why...
Did I miss anything?
No, why is this guy not getting... we know the answer, but why is this guy not getting nailed?
Well, first off, I think the president has an exquisite sense of timing. And I have to tell you, my big reveal, and let me give a shout out to Matt Taibbi, because Taibbi's written some brilliant books, including Griftopia, The Divide, and more recently, Hate, Inc. And in Hate, Inc., Taibbi reveals that Donald Trump is essentially running a WrestleMania drama going up to Election Day. And the conclusion that I have come to is that, first off, I think Joe Biden's going to drop out of the race at some point in the near future. Yes. I have, you remember the source Deep Throat?
Yes.
I have a source in the Democratic National Committee, which I call Deep Anus. Deep Anus told me 2 months ago that Biden was going to drop out by the 16th of September, which was allegedly the last state in which they could change the names on all of the ballots. Now, Biden has not dropped out. There's supposedly a debate tonight, but both Biden and Kamala Harris referred to the Harris administration.
Yes.
A week ago. Yeah. So I went back to Deep Anus, who's in an undisclosed location, and I said, well, what happened here? And he said, they're having an argument. The Republican Rhino Never Trumper wants to be president, and half of the DNC thinks it will be a better ticket with a white guy as president and Harris as vice president, and half of the DNC thinks the optics are bad. If Biden drops out, they have to elevate Harris and bring the white guy in as the token white boy under Harris. And so there's a huge argument going on in the DNC. And I think we'll see that work out. But the bottom line is they're losers no matter what they do. The one winning ticket they could have put together was Colin Powell as president and Elizabeth Warren as vice president. And they lost that chance in part because I think Powell wants nothing to do with the system.
Well, you mentioned that you think there would be a token white guy as vice president under Kamala Harris, but I've been noticing Hillary Clinton pretty active on Twitter today, saying some different things about Trump not conceding, if he loses and all of this stuff. And I was wondering if you thought there was any chance they would try to make her vice president or something like that.
First off, I don't think so. I'm very proud of the letter I wrote to James Comey before I knew that he liked to dress up as Howdy Doody. I wrote a letter to Comey saying, hey, you should be indicting Hillary Clinton for treason, pedophilia, electoral fraud, and charity fraud. Okay? Now, knowing what I know, and knowing what I know about the Weiner laptop, which Sidney Powell has spoken about and one New York detective has spoken to me about, and knowing what I know about what NSA has on Clinton. By the way, Benny's the one who just announced that after Mueller wiped all the phones clean when they turned them in, Benny came up on Twitter and told Dennis Nunes, hey, just go into Star Winds. We've got all of Mueller's texts. Doesn't matter if he wiped out the phones, okay? I think that she and Pelosi and Schumer and all of those people have probably already done signed confessions and video confessions, and this is all a drama that's playing out. There is no way they can beat the combination of Trump and NSA data.
Okay, I've got a very specialized question for you. So we're just talking about Hillary Clinton. We kind of brought up the Clinton Foundation a little bit. And
speaking of which, the Twitter Foundation was trending on Twitter.
The Clinton Foundation, yeah. The Clinton Foundation was trending on Twitter today. So we've got a bunch of people talking about Durham's report on the Clinton Foundation, and we've also got some good investigative journalists out there saying that the DOJ is actually protecting the Clinton Foundation so that it doesn't all get exposed at once, right? If you look at like True Pundit's work, for instance, like that, that's Thomas Paine. I'm sure you're aware of his work with the FBI. What's your perspective on the Clinton Foundation? Is the DOJ actually protecting them?
Let's start with the fact that Bill Barr was Bill Clinton's handler for Bill Casey. CIA created the Clinton crime family.
Right.
CIA created Arkansas as a landing zone for children and drugs and guns and gold and dirty cash. So Bill Barr knows the Clintons intimately.
Well,
Interesting.
Now,
almost as intimately as Deep Anus might know.
well, or either that or Deep Anus is known intimately by Bill Clinton. We could explore all these permutations.
Let's not explore. I'll
tell you, my bottom line is, first off, it's very clear that the Clinton Foundation is about as dirty as the Ford Foundation, the Gates Foundation, the Soros Foundation. They're all dirty. Now, Hillary Clinton sold Somalia and Yemen to Syria. She sold Libya to the French. She sold Uranium One to the Russians. My bottom line is, I think the president has cut deals with all of these people. President Trump is a deal maker. And the easiest way to get to a peaceful, lawful election on time and then move on is to cut deals with these people. So I'm not going to second guess the president. I will tell you with absolute certainty that we have enough to put Hillary Clinton into death row.
I mean, that makes sense. And everyone knows how much the NSA has on everybody, and there's so much information out there. You even said it earlier. I mean, they have everything.
So I got bad news for you. They have all your game chats. They have Proton Mail. They have Signal. They've got it all. And oh, by the way, this is kind of a cool reveal. John Brennan coordinated the Russian witch hunt against the president on what's called the green phone. These are the CIA encrypted green phones. And these green phones, he used these green phones to talk to MI6 and to Gina Haspel, who was John Brennan's bitch in London as chief of station. Okay? NSA has all of CIA's encrypted calls in the clear.
Wow. So that's why they're crapping their pants, really. I know.
Yes.
Yeah. So
we have it all.
We're just talking about the president being a deal maker, that we're trying to get to a kind of a peaceful, lawful election, that we're trying to smooth all of that out in the country. But to everyone in the country, it couldn't appear worse right now with the chaos that's out there. I mean,
right? The fires and everything else that's going on.
It's the fires, like the mud that's being slung at everyone. Yeah. But then we're seeing weird things too, like the Axios article today, where they're all of a sudden, the mail-in voting is kind of they're reversing their views on it and stuff like that. So how would you respond to that? Like, what's actually going on? Why are we seeing all of this WWE drama? But then, you're telling us that in the background, things are actually getting smoothed out. Like, how do we work that out as citizens?
Well, let's start. I paid for another Ben Garrison cartoon, which showed 10 black leaders that the president is not talking to, plus 2 white leaders, Marianne Williamson, The Politics of Love, and Joe Jurgensen from the Libertarian Party. Trump outreach, in my opinion, has been abysmal. The GOP is stabbing the president in the back in 2 different ways. They're not letting Trump supporters in as precinct captains, even though half the seats are vacant. And they're also not doing outreach to the independents, the libertarians, or the Sandinistas. The Sandinistas are populists, not communists or socialists. So let me say I'm very unhappy with the Trump campaign. However, having said that, the whole media thing, I'm very disappointed that the president didn't smash media lies before the 2018 election. We would not have lost the House of Representatives had the media and social media been under control. Yeah. Now, the media is grossly exaggerating everything. Now, Portland and Seattle and New York, I think the president allowed those to play out to show what happens in a democratically run city that has been bought and paid for by George Soros. All right? Now, the president also did a pilot project in Portland. Let me make another point first. All the black leaders, all the authentic black leaders in America have absolutely rejected these protests, which are basically run by paramilitary provocateurs with kits for putting cars on fire. You notice there's always at least one car on fire for the media picture. You've got the illegal aliens from Somalia and Haiti who are paid to participate. And then you've got the dumbass white kids that were social promoted through school and don't know shit from Shinola. However, Trump ran a pilot project in Portland. He did not send in the troops. He sent in undercover officers in unmarked cars who videotaped people committing felonies and then selectively took them off the street when they weren't looking. This scared the shit out of these protesters. The rules of engagement have changed. We're now in a state of war. This is domestic terrorism. This is no longer about due process where George Soros can pay for all the lawyers, just like Bloomberg probably just committed a major felony by paying the fines of all of the felons, as a quid pro quo for their voting Democratic. Okay, so we're now at a point where everybody who is a domestic terrorist can be considered an enemy of the state. And that means you can treat them as an enemy combatant under the military tribunal rules, which Lindsey Graham was so careful to articulate when Justice Kavanaugh was being interviewed. The rules have changed.
Hey, so before we get into mail-in voting, I have a very specific question because we're on this topic. I've been following, some of what you're saying and how the military is behind some of these protests, you could say, right? And we've also been seeing strange things in the news by people like General Mattis, who looks like he's behind forming a coup against the President of the United States. How is this true? Like, what's actually going on out there? I mean, do we have a bunch of military and army and different generals out there who are very against the president and that are willing to commit treason, or is it a part of the show, essentially?
It's a good question. I think one way of understanding General Mattis is to go back to the videotapes of Kay Griggs, the wife of Colonel Griggs, talking about how General Al Gray was essentially running a sodomy circle at the highest levels of Marine Corps flag officers. I don't think Mattis is all there. And I think he's got some deep, deep personal issues. I think the Lincoln Project is seditionist and full of lies. It's defamatory. I think all of the rhinos that have gone over to support Biden, they basically signed their death warrants politically. I think all of these people are going to be flushed out of the system. Now, having said that, I also believe very strongly we need to flush the two-party tyranny out of the system. Yeah. I don't think there's a military coup against Trump. I think that the military and law enforcement are by and large in favor of the president. And, when people thank me, I earned this Marine Corps flag. When people thank me for my service, I said the best way to thank me for my service is to not send any more people to wars based on lies, because that's what we've been doing. And President Trump gets that. I think he also gets something I've been saying for a while now, that we don't need 1,000 military bases overseas to protect the United States of America. Those 1,000 bases overseas are lily pads for smuggling children, drugs, guns, gold, and cash, often with military aircraft. The easiest way to secure peace worldwide is to demobilize the United States military and bring them home and bring their wallets home to mama.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed part 1 with our interview with Robert David Steele.
And join us for part 2 on edgeofwonder.tv, where we go into all kinds of crazy stuff.
Right, you're not going to want to miss that one. So until next time, we'll see you guys out
on the edgeofwonder.tv.